Most people set up their CRM wrong, and it all starts with how they manage their customers, contacts, and addresses. If you don't get this part right, your entire CRM can fall apart. In this video, I'll show you the best way to structure your SmartSuite or Airtable CRM. Check it out. Welcome back. I'm Zach from InnerDev Solutions. We help businesses streamline their processes using custom no-code tools so you can focus on what matters most. To learn more, you can visit our website, innerdevsolutions.com, or use the link in the description below. I am going to be building in SmartSuite, but the same principles apply to Airtable or any other database that you are building your own CRM with. If you don't have a SmartSuite account already, you can create one using a link in the description below. And then we are just going to get started here. I have started from scratch within SmartSuite, so we have a fresh solution. I've already went ahead and deleted the default fields that come preloaded with the solution. The focus of this video is going to be correctly setting up your customers' contacts and addresses tables and linking them together. This will allow you to manage multiple customers. You're going to be able to manage the contacts that are related to those customers. So the customer is like the company, the contact is the people within the company. Within this type of setup, usually you're going to have a customer company being a one-to-many relationship with the contact. One company, and you could have multiple contacts within that company. And then same thing with addresses. It's going to be very similar setup to as we do with the contacts. From the customers to the addresses, we are going to have a one-to-many relationship because any company could have any number of locations. This could vary a little bit depending on your specific needs, how things should link together. Maybe in some cases, you actually want to link the address to the customer and to a contact because a specific contact works at a specific location and it's only relevant to have their contact details related to that specific location for whatever purpose that is. Maybe they work in shipping, receiving, something along those lines. I'll just show you how to set up your customers table, your contacts table, and your addresses table. And with those last two linking back to the customers, we're not going to worry about linking the contact to the address as well. There's a lot of different fields that you could add to the customer, but we're going to keep things simple throughout this video and just add in the key primary fields that we really need. First thing that we're going to do, I'm going to actually leave this as manual input, and we can call this company or customer name, something along those lines. Maybe I'll just add company name. And we want the entries to be unique. We're going to add a status field in here, and we can clear out some of these options, and we'll do something like lead, maybe active customer, and former customer. And we can change the colors. We'll go into defaults, make sure the default is lead, and we can set these mark as complete, but it doesn't really apply in this use case. Hit add field. One thing I forgot to do, I need to come up here. We'll change this to customer. And then down at the bottom, there's also this, what should each record be called? We can change that to customer as well. And you can see it's changed the context or reference of what the records are actually called to customers. Instead of saying new record, it says new customer. Before I add in a bunch of additional fields, I am going to duplicate these two. We'll go duplicate table. We'll create a contacts table and we'll duplicate it again. And this one is going to be addresses. So within contacts, I'm going to select the drop down. We're going to go change this to contact, and same with addresses. We will change this to an address. Now we can go back to customer and continue adding the additional fields that we need. We'll bring in a link field type, and we can just call this website. Maybe there's a general email for the company. We can bring in a phone number as well. And from here, this covers just about everything. Obviously, you could add in notes if you wanted. You could add in the industry type and anything else specific to the customer or company that you're adding into your system. But this gives us the high level of what we need. We can go into the contacts table and we will add in a few fields. We'll leave this status, but we're going to change up what the actual options are. We'll go active, inactive. We can change this one to red, and we'll just keep it really simple as active or inactive. We'll click into the defaults. By default, any contact that we add will be active. We'll add another field in, and we're going to use a text field. Now, if I type in full name, There is a name option, but I find it doesn't integrate nicely with a lot of other tools. The easiest thing is to create two different fields. One is going to be first name, and then I go in, duplicate it, and change this to last name. We could add things like department and job title and anything else that's related to the specific contact or person, but I'm going to keep things simple. We'll just add in the email, a phone number for them as well that we would want to track for each individual contact. And then the last thing that I want to add in will be a link record. And we can go down to the customers, and we want to allow or turn off allow linking to multiple records, because a contact can only be linked to one customer at a time. Add field there. We'll go back to customers, click into the fields to display, and we will display the linked contacts. If I double click that, we can see on this side that we allow linking to multiple records. That one is correct because a customer company can have multiple contacts. Last thing I want to do in the contacts table, we'll go over to the primary ID field, and we can just change this to contact ID. We're going to go auto-generated. And then on this plus icon, we can bring in the first name. I'll add in a space. I'll bring in the last name. And then I'm just going to separate it with a dash, and we can use the link to customer so that we can create a unique ID. We can update this field. And that's now everything that we need for the contacts table. And we go over into addresses, same thing in addresses. In this case, I'll leave the status. Depending on your setup, you may or may not need it, but I will just create an active and an inactive address selection so that if a company moves or something along those lines, we can easily just deactivate that address and add in the new address. The nice thing with SmartSuite is there is an address field type. Airtable does not have this. So if you wanted to create the address, you'd have to break it out and create a field for the street, the city, the country, and those types of data points, this address option. Now they have two different display formats, one being multiple line, one being single line. I prefer to use a single line in most cases. So we will just add in a field, and I'll show you how that works shortly. Couple of additional fields you might want to add. We're going to bring in a single select field. And again, depending on your specific use case or how you want to break this out, you may want to identify different types. That could be a billing address. This could be a shipping location, could be the HQ or the headquarters or the main office. And the last thing is you could use a text area or a smart doc, something like that, just for some additional notes so that you can reference what that location is for in more detail if needed. A couple more things I want to add in. Another linked record, and we want to link this to the customer again. We only want to allow the addresses to link to one customer. We can add that field similar to what we did for the contacts. We'll go to the fields to display, and we will add in the link to addresses. I'll double click that, and you can see that we allow linking to multiple records, which is correct. Now we want to create a unique primary field or primary key field for the addresses. There's a few different ways that you could label this, but one thing I like to do, I'm going to use a formula field. I'll just label this street. And if we access the address, type address, select that field, hit the dot, because we're going to use dot notation. We'll bring in the street. We can add this field. We'll go auto-generated. In this case, first thing I'm going to do is I'll bring in the type. I'll separate that out. I'll bring in the street name so that we can get the specific location, and we'll bring in the customer name as well. And I'll update this field. I'm going to add some sample data so that I can demonstrate how our current setup will operate. Now that I have some sample data in here, I've got some customers, some contacts that have linked back to the customers, and the addresses. I've added a few example addresses in, and I've noted billing and shipping addresses. And just to show you how this address field works in SmartSuite, I will add one more address, and it links to the Google Maps API and pulls in the address. Once you start typing it, as long as you've typed it properly and it shows correctly in Google Maps, it will show up here. And you can just select the location. Once you click out of it, you can see that this icon is blue. And if you select it, it will bring up the actual map. If it's gray, that means that it hasn't authenticated properly, but most addresses do display correctly. And now last thing I want to do is come in and I will select this one as a shipping address. And I'm just going to link these to the different customers within my system. I'll link the first 3 to Acme and the next 2 to Blue Wave. This is an efficient way to set up your CRM and include your customers' contacts and addresses and have them all linked. Now, I want to take it one step further and show you why this is beneficial. What I'm going to do is quickly go in and add a new field. If you are a manufacturer, chances are you're going to have some purchase orders or sales orders that you need to link information to, or even if you're a distributor or something like that. But you also may want to link this information in a different way. Maybe you want to set it up as projects or as a quote or something along those lines. But what I'm going to do so I can show you how the address and contact and customers all relate together, I'm just going to create a purchase order and give you a couple of different examples. I'm going to go in, create a new table from scratch, and I will label this purchase order. There's going to be line items within any given purchase order in probably 99.9% of use cases. I'm not going to get into building out the line items table. What I am going to show you is this is like the top level, the purchase order. That's going to contain the purchase order number, date, any other specific requirements and details, the customer shipping address or billing address, however you have that set up. Keep things simple. I'm just going to add in an order number field here so that we know what we're working with. One thing I do want to do, change this to auto-generated, and we will just link this to the number. Now with the order coming in, we need to link that to a customer. That's going to be a linked record field, and we're going to link to customers, and we want to allow or turn off allowing to multiple records. We've got our customer. Now our contact, again, we will only allow to link to one contact in this case. And the last thing here is going to be linked to an address. Linked record, we're only going to allow linking to one record, and that is going to be our address. Now that we have this set up, we're going to say that maybe Blue Wave is placing the order with us. And if I click into link to contacts, we're going to have a list of all of our contacts. And we can see here that Acme Corp and Blue Wave are both included. Hit this plus icon. We can filter out only Blue Wave employees or contacts. We'll go up to the settings option and we'll go filter. We want to make sure that the link to customer, and we can use has any of, or we could do is exactly, and we'll hit this. We're going to use a dynamic filter, and we want to make sure it's the link to the customer. Now we can click out of that and we can see that it has filtered out only Blue Wave customers now. I'm going to close this, add in another record, and I'll link this one to Acme, and you'll be able to see now when I click into it, the one Acme contact or employee is showing. Now we go through, do that exact same process on the link to addresses. If we click into it, we can see all of the addresses in our system, and we can take this one a step further. We'll click the plus icon. We'll go to the settings. We're going to filter the address, and we want to scroll down here to link to customer is exactly dynamic filter the linked customer. Now if I close this out, click into the Blue Wave one here, we can see the two different Blue Wave addresses. If this field was specifically supposed to be the billing address or the shipping address, maybe this is a shipments table, for example, you could even take it a step further and say only display addresses that have the shipping type. But in our case, what we're going to do is just have this information displayed. But once we click into it, we can see that this is the billing address, this is the shipping address. We can see that by the type here as well, and we can see the address. And now this purchase order is linked to those two specific addresses. And now the other thing that we can do here is we'll hit the add field. We'll use the lookup and we'll look at the addresses, and we want to bring in the actual address. We'll add the field, and now it has looked up the address linked to this record here. And then if we want, we can select this and it will display the Google map for us. I'm going to go back to addresses and show you one unique feature to SmartSuite. We have this address field, and as I showed you, once we started typing in the address, it validates it for us once we select it, but it adds it all in one single line. Now, I made that selection using this single line, but if it's important for you to separate it out, or you want to see something specific like the city, or you want to be able to see maybe the country, something along those lines, I showed you how to use the formula to bring this in. Now, that was only to add that to the address ID. So I'm actually going to hide this, but if we go into fields to display, we can go down to this address, hit the plus icon, and now we can get each individual field from within the address field. If we wanted to get state, we could separate the state, and then that way we could generate reports and group information by certain states if that was important to us. Point of this tutorial was to demonstrate the importance of separating out the customer contacts and addresses and how you can link them all together so that you have the maximum flexibility for once you have purchase orders or shipments or anything else that you really need to create and be able to add each type of individual piece of information to those types of tables. That's it for this video. I hope it was helpful. Make sure you hit that subscribe button for more tutorials in the future.